Imagine a single paragraph of sand, a tiny fraction of the Earth, suddenly becoming the bargaining chip that can reshape global technology, defense supply chains, and the price of your next smartphone. That is the high-stakes reality playing out between Washington and Beijing right now. Article: Tariff Tension. Why the U.S. threat on November 1 puts the world's tech supply chain on edge. On October 14, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer told CNBC that whether the United States follows through with a newly announced 100% tariff on Chinese exports on November 1 depends squarely on Beijing's next moves. In short, Washington has left the door open for de-escalation, but it has also made clear that patience is limited and consequences are real. The immediate spark for this standoff is Beijing's expansion of export controls on rare earths and other critical minerals, materials essential for electric vehicles, wind turbines, advanced semiconductors, and many defense technologies. U.S. officials view the controls as a dangerous attempt by China to wield monopoly power over crucial inputs to high-tech supply chains. Beijing, for its part, insists the measures are legitimate regulatory steps or motivated by national security considerations. The ambiguity about Beijing's motive only deepens mistrust and complicates diplomacy. President Trump publicly responded by threatening to ratchet tariffs on Chinese imports up to 100% as of November 1, and the U.S. has signaled additional export control measures on select technologies. Greer's comments underline a familiar U.S. playbook: leverage tariffs and controls as negotiating pressure while leaving room for a diplomatic off-ramp if China reverses or eases its curbs. But the practical question is whether such an off-ramp exists, and how credible either side's threats really are. Markets and allies are jittery. Financial indices and risk indicators dipped on the news, reflecting investor anxiety about the potential for broader trade fragmentation, supply shocks, and higher inflationary pressures. Economic institutions like the IMF have warned that an escalating trade conflict between the world's two largest economies could dent global growth and raise prices worldwide, especially in technology and manufacturing sectors that rely on just-in-time, globally dispersed inputs. So what happens next? There are three plausible pathways. 1. De-escalation before November 1, China clarifies or rolls back its controls, and the U.S. stands down or postpones tariffs. This would be the quickest fix, but requires Beijing to cede some strategic wiggle room, politically painful at home. 2. A managed confrontation. The U.S. enacts targeted tariffs and export controls, while both sides pursue intensive talks to avoid an all-out rupture. Supply chains and markets would face volatility, but could adapt with time and allied cooperation. 3. Full escalation. Broad 100% tariffs and reciprocal Chinese measures trigger a deep severing of integrated trade links, accelerating deglobalization for sensitive technologies. The costs would be steep: rationed inputs, delayed projects in green tech and defense, and long-term inflation. For industries and policymakers, the core strategic lesson is now stark. Resilience matters more than ever. Countries and firms reliant on single-source critical minerals or components must accelerate diversification through allied supply partnerships, domestic capacity building, recycling of critical elements, and investments in alternative materials research. Analysts from energy and minerals consultancies already warn that building alternative supply chains is possible, but will take years and sustained policy support. Politically, the episode exposes how tightly economic tools are now bound to national security thinking. Export controls on minerals and technologies are treated as instruments of strategic competition, not merely trade policy. That raises a hard question for democracies: how to protect national security without needlessly fragmenting markets that have delivered decades of innovation and cost reductions. Finally, Greer's public framing that the tariffs depend on Beijing's actions signals a tactical posture, pressure with a veneer of negotiability. But signaling and leverage are fragile. Misreads, domestic politics on both sides, or an unrelated shock, a currency move, a military incident, could close the bargaining window quickly. Bottom line, November 1 is a deadline, not a fait accompli. The next 2 weeks will reveal whether both capitals prefer a bruising public confrontation or a carefully managed retreat. Either way, businesses should assume heightened volatility, governments should speed up contingency planning for critical minerals supply, and consumers should be prepared for potential knock-on costs in electronics and clean energy tech if compromise proves elusive.